Hey class, so welcome to your marketing packet assignment. So on the screen, what you see here is the logo that I've been using as a sample to work with you with. So right now you guys all have your logos pretty much set. You have all the color breakups, you have all the Pantone selected, you have your font identity selected as well. So the first thing we're going to do is now take this into InDesign, and this is going to be outside of what you've been working on from the identity sheet itself. So once you go into InDesign, what I want you to do is pull up a brand new document. So we're going to start with our resume first, because resume most likely is going to be the second hardest from the list of things to work with. So this is the sheet, or I should say this is the page that it gives you for setting in your page requirements. Facing pages, we do not want selected. So facing pages is when you're working with a book. And we're not working with a book, we're just working with single sheets. So facing pages comes off. Right now, my system is set to picas. I'm not going to switch it back to inches. I may probably do it throughout the tutorial, but I think I'll keep it to picas for now. So columns. I like to actually work with a lot of columns even if I don't use them all. So I'm going to set 3 columns with a gutter of 1p, which is fine. The basic setting or the default setting is 1/4 of an inch, and that's 3p around. So once you select it in one section, it does it for each and every one for the bottom, left, and right. So let's say if I wanted a full 1/2 inch in here. 0.5, put the inch mark. I press tab. Well, actually, it was 3p is not 1/4, 3p is 1/2. That was my mistake. At a 1/2 inch around, it's set for all the margins, but I actually want 1/4. 0.25 inches. 1p6. Okay, so now it's set to 1p6. If I wanted any differences, if I wanted my top to be less than the bottom, I would click this link button to delink all of the requirements, and then I can go in to these individual pieces and set what I need to set. Bleeds and slugs. For your resume, this is actually up to you. Do you have the money to keep getting your resumes professionally printed every single time? You probably don't. And if you're going to get them professionally printed, it's most likely you would set a bleed. But since you're not getting your resume printed outside of just your own printer at home or at school, I would leave the bleed at 0 and then press OK. So this is the document I'm going to be working with for my resume. And the reason why I gave it 1/4 of an inch all around, here is the space that our printer in the lab grabs. And this is a printer at home would grab this space too. I like to call that the section where no ink goes onto. So everything that's going to happen inside of my margins that I've set is called the live area. In my live area, all the action happens. So once I have my page set, I know that for me, my resume is going to probably go over to 2 pages because I've been doing this for 18 years. For some of you, it's going to stay on one. I don't think anyone's going to go to 2 pages just yet. Your careers are not, there right now, but it will get there. It will get there fast. So once you have your page set, you probably want to save it somewhere. So I would save it to, this is your little document that I've been kind of working with for this assignment. I'm going to put a brand new folder and call this resume. And I'm going to call this resume _ Ramirez. Now beforehand, and this is actually something that you're going to be starting in class tomorrow, or in class when you're looking at the assignment, you're going to pull together your actual resume. We have Junior Delgado coming from the Career Center to kind of give you a little walkthrough on what you need for resumes. But right here, you see all of the information that I'm going to be plugging into my resume. And on a Microsoft Word document with bullets, we're looking at a clean 3 pages. I think I'm going to actually play with the type to get that down to an easy 1. No, sorry, an easy 2. I can't do one pages with all this text. So once you feed in all your information, you have your name, your address. I'm not showing you guys where I live, but I do live in Westfield. Contact information, website, LinkedIn, which I never use, but people go crazy for LinkedIn. My degrees. So this is my master's degree. Below that, this is my bachelor's degree. And this is where I spent time in England to do my internship at the Kent Institute of Art and Design. Then I have qualifications, which it looks like I have some spelling stuff I have to take care of, or grammar stuff I have to take care of. These are all the specialties, things that I can do. These are a good list of the programs that I know. And this is my experience that's current all the way down to when I first started as a graphic designer. Now, the one thing that's not up here is my teaching experience, but this is a play resume for class. I do have my real resume kind of floating somewhere, but this is what I'm using, at least to guide you guys through the process. So once you've gone through and we've had that session with Junior, you typed your resume in Microsoft Word, you're going to start to now incorporate this stuff and bring it into InDesign. So let's say you guys have typed all this stuff out. You have your resume solid. All the information is typed out. Grammar is corrected. You are going to select everything you've got here. You're going to copy it. Go back into InDesign. And what I want you to do is, you see where the T is here. We're going to create a text box and press paste. So these are those little bullets that I'm going to have to take care of. I haven't really decided what I'm doing with that just yet, and I don't think I'm going to make a decision just yet, but as I go through, we'll play with it when we get there. So I know that for me, what I like to see is a consistent head that goes on both pages. But unfortunately, when you're dealing with a resume, sometimes the head on page 2 has to get smaller. So what does head mean? What's this term I'm calling out? Head is everything that's the descriptor, sort of like the main thing. So you open up a magazine and you see the headline. That's what a head is. And usually for a resume, your head will consist of your logo and your basic contact information. And that's what I'm going to do right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call upon my logo. So let me, where's that keyboard? Let's get the keyboard up here. It's been a long time, keyboard. There it is. You have to forgive me. I'm losing my voice. I don't know why. I think it's the weather changing. All right, so there goes the keyboard. I'm going to do on my Mac keyboard Command D. And for you guys on your keyboard, that's going to be a command, not command, it's going to be the window key, D for place. And there's my logo. So you see that little thumbnail. This tells me that there's an image that's on my cursor ready to be placed. What I usually do is just I find my spot and I click once with my mouse. Super huge, right? So, but that's the image at 100%. Now on my keyboard, I'm going to press Shift, Command, and Option, which is what I like to call the claw. You're clawing with your fingers on those 3 buttons. We're going to shrink this down in proportion. The X and Y axis is coming down. I'm going to lock it to the corner. Not to the actual page corner, but to my margin corner. It's a little bit too big because remember, I have contact information that I have to put in there. So I'm going to make this slightly smaller. And I think that that's where I want to kind of keep that. I'm going to take my contact information here. I'm using the T, which is for type. I'm going to select this whole section right here. So the one thing that I want to pull up, because I'm very detailed with type, And when I'm very detailed with type, I'm expecting my students to kind of give the courtesy and be that detailed as well. So the first step in helping you in understanding the detail is to show your hidden characters. I want you to go into type, show hidden characters. And these are the characters that no one sees but a graphic designer. Zoom in so you can see the chaos here. So these little markers here are called full returns. A full return indicates that you've reached the end of a line and the next line is continuing after. It helps with style sheets and it helps with styling, which we're going to learn a little bit later. So what I'm doing is I'm selecting this whole section, full returns and all, copy, and I'm going to create a text box here. I'm going to make sure it lines up as much as it can, and that green line tells me it's lining up, and paste. I'm going to now select the font because I really didn't actually have a good font that I was using. I'm going to do a big no-no and I'm going to choose Gill Sans because this for me is just play in this class. For you guys, I mean, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, why are you using Gill Sans? Don't use Gill Sans. Tell them to shut up. You use what you want to use. Just if there's going to be any ridicule after, you just got to deal with it. I see a little correction there. There we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a look at my name. And I'm going to make that several points larger in size. I'm going to do it by going to the font size indicator on this top menu. I'm going to go once, twice. 16 is going to be my max. And I'm going to keep the address at 12. I'm actually not. I'm going to actually bring all this information here down a couple points. 10 on 12. So this is another language thing that I want you guys to get used to. When you bring the type size up or down, you have to pay attention to the leading. So the leading is the spacing that's in between each paragraph. The general rule is that whatever type size you go, your leading has to be 2 points higher. So if I were to kick this to 12, my leading automatically went to 14. But sometimes when you're working with a huge galley of text, that little auto leading bit right there won't work for you because you're overwhelming it. So you're going to just have to keep the rule in your head. Type size, you choose what you want, but your leading has to be 2 points higher than the type size. Let's bring this back to 10. 10 on 12. I'm going to get rid of my full returns in between. I'm going to get rid of this little hatch mark and put it right next to my LinkedIn address. So right now we're having a bit of a spacing issue. Everything's really crunched together. Very inexperienced designers will do this to get that extra space. That is okay if you are just someone who types letters or does word processing, but you are not a word processor, so you are a graphic designer. So you do not do that ever. It's the sign of a sloppy designer. What you're going to do is adjust the space before. So I have my name, my address, my city and state and zip. I'm going to add what's called a space before. Space before is in the indication right here. I'm kind of hovering over it. You can tell what space before is because if you hover, it'll say space before. But also it has a little gray box and this little icon underneath lines of text or above lines of text. I'm going to give this a couple space befores. I'm going to actually set it to P6. That also exists here in your paragraph box. All right, so sometimes this will pop up for you. These sections are exactly the same. There goes my voice. It's going. I'm going to bring this leading up by P6 as well. And I'm going to give a little bit of space between my website and my LinkedIn. P3. That control is why we use the space before. With a full return, you're just going to be dealing with a lot of nightmares. You're going to start sizing the space between, and you'll be putting fonts on the full return. It's a nightmare. It's a big no-no. So you've learned the art of space befores now. I'm actually going to put another one between my address and name. And I'm going to look at spatial relation. I'm going to move this in. I'm going to lock it to the grid here. And if this is not all the way at the corner, it's fine. All right. So I'm getting ready to actually start my other bits. What I'm going to do is add a guide. Now this is up to you. Now the guides that I put and the information that I put and how I style this, you don't have to follow. So right now this is more of a looking and taking notes kind of tutorial for things that you need to know. So the space before bits that I showed you and the hidden characters, that's stuff you should write down. So I'm locking all of this into my artificial grid. And now I'm going to start using the type. The first information that I have to deal with is with my education. And here is where design aesthetic takes over. What kind of designer are you? So what kind of layout are you going to choose for your resume? Now, Junior is going to tell you that for businesses, well, most likely for almost all agencies and businesses, you should not have a crazy resume. Your resume should not look like an art piece. It should look like a mix of business and also color. Color is your artistic expression. You do not need to create this huge over-designed piece because it just will not look good. And it doesn't look professional. So the first thing I'm going to take this text, education. I've already established all my guys. I'm putting one text box. So we're going to format everything you see here in one text box in InDesign. Paste. I'm going to give it a title because I didn't before. Education. And I may take in everything for qualifications. All right, so that stuff is in now. So what we're going to do is a lot of dirty formatting. We're not going to use style sheets for this one. We're going to kind of do all of this by eye to help you perfect the art of styling by eye. First thing I'm going to choose is my identifier font, my main font. And I've already established that my main font is Gill Sans. And it's a Gill Sans Light. And I'm at 10 on 12. All right, great. I'm going to deal with all of this messiness in a bit. First thing I'm going to do is zoom in, take a look at my education. Now, what I would like is for my word education to be slightly larger and all of this text here to flush to the right. So what I'm going to do is invade on the line of education. I'm going to start my line that says masters right there, and I'm going to press tab. And I'm going to call upon my tab window. So I went into type and I'm calling up my tab window. And this is going to help me identify how far I'm going to tab information in. I figure from this artificial margin all the way to the first column of my grid is where all of my heads, the major heads, education, qualifications, is going to take up all that space. I pressed one tab. Now the one thing you should never do is, you should never do this to kind of get it where you want it. Again, this is a sign of a sloppy designer. Another thing you should never do, multiple tabs to get it to where you want it. It's a sign of a sloppy designer. Use your tab window to you've already have one tab assigned, and there goes the symbol for tab in our hidden characters. You allow this is gonna fight me. All right, let's delete that one. Oh, there we go. Allow the tabs to guide you. Now, I'm having a hard time moving it because I have a very crappy mouse. So if you see me fighting in a section with stuff like that, Just kind of bear with me. All right, so everything that's aligning on that section is here. What I do need is for all this information below to line up the same way. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a family. This line of type needs to be married to this line, and that line. I do that by highlighting my full return, and I'm going to press Shift. You can see it here. Shift and return. That is a soft return. A soft return is very different from a full return because now this is linked here, and I'll show you how that works. If I need everything on this line to style right here, if I need that to style a certain way, if I click quickly, it gets the whole line selected. That same premise works with two lines of text that are married with a soft return. So that whole line has now merged down with that one, and it won't pass that point. It won't pass it because the full return is stopping it. This soft return has merged it here. Soft return there, soft return there. So again, Shift return is soft. And within this section, I can actually now play with the tabs and alignment to see what I want to get. I'm going to probably have to take my artificial tab off because now I know for spacing what I want. So that was my indent. It's the two little markers here. It's very Microsoft Word. I'm sure you guys know how to use the indent tool. So the bottom moves the entire paragraph. If you grab the top, that's how you control the indentations. And if it'll move for me, there we go. So now I've separated my education from the rest of the type. I have it lined up where I wanted it. My tab is gone. I didn't need it now because I decided to join and marry all of these sections here. The spacing in between is separated with one tab, not multiple spacebar spaces. So this is kind of the format I'm going to choose. I'm going to get rid of this soft return here. Now I need, that was a full return, sorry. I need this whole paragraph to behave like this one up here. So what I need to do is either make a choice to eyedrop, where I can eyedrop the actual style, or I can just kind of do the formatting all over again. I'm going to choose to do the formatting all over again, just so you see what I did. So I'm going to take all these sections here and marry them. So there goes my full return. It ends everything in this section. I'm starting a new section. First line, soft return. Second line, soft return. Third line, soft return. I don't need any indentations because there's no title for this little section here. It continues the education conversation. And I'm just going to line them up. Now I didn't need to highlight that whole thing to do that. That's just my habit of doing that all the time. I've already merged them all with soft return, so I don't know why I did that, but add some space before. Not too much. I've established everything has a P6 kind of spacing to it. So there, at least in terms of formatting, that section's done. I haven't really jumped into fonts or haven't jumped into italics or anything like that. Right now I'm looking at spacing. I'm going to get rid of that full return there. I need to marry this line to this line here, so I'm going to get rid of that full return, and I'm adding a tab. Now, here's where you can actually start to duplicate style. If you take your eyedrop and you know that this is the spacing that you like, and you like how this section marries with each other, you can duplicate everything down here to mimic itself and act like this section up here by clicking your eyedrop tool, going to this set of type. There, it copied the style. That will save you a ton of time. And then add some space befores in there. This time, because it's two separate categories, I'm going a little bit more dramatic. 1P. My specialties in. I don't want to marry this section to this stuff right here. That's a semicolon. Let's just make sure. All right, it's a semicolon. I want my bullets to be free from my qualification sentences right there. So I'm going to take all these bullets, and I'm just going to kind of style them all individually. That's why I highlighted every single one of them. I'm going to move them into place, and I'm going to actually make them 1 point smaller than the rest. I'm going to take away these little artificial bullets because I don't like them in this setting. I'm going to add a bit of space before here. I'm going to highlight because all of these are separate elements. They're not connected, so I can't do it to one and expect every single one of them to do it. I have to treat them all as separate elements. I'm highlighting them all, and I'm adding a bullet. So I can control the space in between the bullets. So notice here how the tabs have shifted and changed. I can go in and shift the spacing in between from the bullet to the first line and bring it back to where it needs to be. I know you guys are all thinking like, wow, this dude is crazy anal. I am. When it comes to type, I am a psychopath. But people love it. You know, your bosses will love it. People will love to see that you are very careful with type and you care about type, because that is another form of communication. I'm going to separate the space in between those bullets with about maybe 2p. Or I'm sorry, P2. Pica 2. I have this paragraph down here. Let's bring that into position. My first line indentation, I'm going to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. I am having a little bit of an issue here. I think I may have to break this type up into 2 separate columns. So I'm going to show you how to break type up in 2 separate columns while staying in one text box. So far that's education, qualifications, and we're going to move into the next section, which is related experience. So let me just get rid of all this crap here. All right. I got rid of the word related somehow. Bring it back in there. And I'm going to select all of it because I know that there's nothing else that's there. And before I copy it, I might as well just copy the style in between. But do I want to do that? No. I think what I'm just going to do is change them all to Gill Sans right now. And then bring it down to 10. If I copy the style with the eyedropper, I'm going to be copying all the space befores, and I don't want to do that because I want to make sure that I'm controlling all the space befores. Make sure that that is light. I'm copying that, and I'm pasting. All right. So the obvious, and we're all looking at it. George, you don't have enough space. You're right. I don't have enough space. I have to go to my next page. So how do you do that in InDesign? Here is your master page. In your master page, if I were to put anything in there, so actually let's show you what that looks like. If I were to put anything in my master page, this is going to repeat itself throughout the whole layout. Every single page is going to have this because I've put it into a master that's dictating what's happening to everything else. You see it? It's right there. So if I were to drag another page in, there it is. So that dot's going to go everywhere. So that's what the master pages do. So right now, I don't need my master pages to have anything on them. So I'm going to press delete. When we're going to work with large documents, and we will for the 4-pager, and we will for your trifold, we're going to take master pages into consideration. So what I need to do is make sure that this text continues on to this page. Now, you see this little marker here, I'm going to zoom in on it. This little marker with the X on it that's red, that means that within this text box, there is more type that we're not seeing. And we need to find a way to either style this to make everything fit or continue this text that's, flowing over into a brand new text box. You do that by clicking on that little plus sign, that red warning plus sign. And just like with an image, you see the text is flowing with the cursor. And you feed in a new box. Alright, I think I'm getting sick. The more I talk, I feel it. Alright. I think actually for my master pages, I'm going to copy these guides. So I'm selecting copy. I'm going into master page. I'm selecting paste. So you can actually copy and paste guides as well. So that my second page, there, I have guides to kind of keep everything consistent. I love this thing, but I hate this thing at the same time. Because I move the page around, I spaz out. Okay. So now I can start styling the type the way that I want. And this is going to be a lot of eyedropper. This is going to be a lot of eyedropper. I'm going to tab this in. And I'm going to eyedrop. There we go. I'm going to marry all the lines that belong together. All right, so this, I want some space before that. So what I'm just going to do is stylize this on my own. Make sure I line up perfectly. It went too far. Why? Let's try that again. There we go. And that's a full 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, P6. Now, do I want to copy the same bullet style that I've been using? To keep it consistent, I think I will. So I'm going to highlight everything here, take my eyedrop, and I'm going to copy the bullet style. Get rid of these marks I don't like. And then we have the conundrum of what to do with the other pieces, but we've dealt with that before. I'm going to actually eyedrop it just so I can figure out what to do, and I'm not using my eye anymore because that one kind of flew across the first time. There we go. Then I'm going to marry. I don't want that tab marker in there. I'm going to marry that. And this, I'm going to eyedrop. So here's where it starts to go really fast, but this is the benefit of going through all that styling, because now you're just going to eyedrop like a crazy person. Eyedrop. Marry. Don't like these extra tabs. Responsibility. Eyedrop. This whole section here is going to get the bullet treatment. Whoops. All right. Stylistically, there's a lot of crazy things happening, but we're going to fix them actually in this lesson. Marry. Where are these tabs coming through here? Marry. Marry. Stylize for responsibilities. Now this, even though it's going by really quick, and I'm probably just blowing your minds and revolutionizing how you've worked with type, but this is still a little bit too slow. You know, we can use a style sheet, so we'll be using style sheets for the other projects coming up in this series. And copy style, marry. So again, shift and return, that is the soft return. Responsibility, and all right, and then we're going to clean that up by getting rid of all those little funky marks. And here you can kind of pick and choose what to do with this little extra space on the bottom. I mean, there's a lot more. I can add references. I can add a whole bunch of other stuff, but I'm pushing it so far. And already I see that there's some stuff to stylize, so I'm not really thinking about my spacing. All I know is that I have some free space here to play with. So I just may play with some settings. I may make things larger again, but that depends, when I get there. So the first thing I'm going to do now, well, this is like an eighth thing. It's not the first thing. It's just a slip of my tongue. It's like the 18th thing I'm going to do right now is take care of my B heads and the B heads. So this was like all of my A head stuff, my major head. My B heads are all of these little sub heads down here. I'm going to change those into a Gill Sans semi-bold, and I'm going to kick those up in size. 17 is too large. 16. All right. And since I've already established that I'm using this little freaky, funky font there, this is just for play. I'm just going to do it. I mean, I'd never really get a job by doing stuff like this, but I'm going to do it anyway and see what happens. It is kind of adjusting all of my spacing here on the first line, and that means it's going to do it for everything else, but I do like it. I do like it. It's kind of funky, and I may turn those brown to kind of fit in with my site identity. So what I'm going to do is boop. This may kill all of that free space that I was, gloating about just a few seconds ago. Not really. Alright, so I'm going to keep it. Not the best, not the most professional thing to do is to choose a curly Q font for your resume, but I've got to make this fun for me, so shut up. Leave me alone. Alright, so I've stylized my little B heads there, and I may choose to actually make them a different color. Now, I didn't put my Pantones in because I showed you guys how to do that without doing them myself. So I'm going to put in a Pantone color into my library. To do that, you call upon your swatches. So there goes your swatches. It's just like Adobe Illustrator. You go to the little dialog window on the side, you press it, and you say new color swatch. And this window pops up. So this is how you're going to call upon a Pantone. You're going to go into the color mode, into Pantone Solid Coated, and you're going to choose a version of brown, or you're going to go and type in the identity colors that you used. And there it goes. I'm going to highlight here. So for the majority of you, in fact, actually for all of you, that identity color has already popped in because I forced you to kind of do that beforehand. So you have your Pantone color set. Now we're going to take a look at italics and bolds and see where they need to go. So Master of Public Administration, I'm going to semi-bold that. Bachelor of Arts, I'm going to semi-bold that. My study abroad, I'm going to actually italicize that. And you know, for a part of me wants to add that little space before, but I'm not going to. I'm going to keep it right there. So I'm looking at my type here. These little spaces, these little dots in between, this indicates the space in between letters. You'll usually see this sometimes when people give you a document. So it's your job to look at the document and take those away. Just make those one space. Anything to denote time needs to be an N dash. That's EN dash. So it's going to be an option dash. So I press the option key and then I press the dash key, which is over here. That gives me an N dash. And taking a look down here, I have no extra spaces, but I see some stuff happening here. So here, that little break is called a hyphen. All right, and I do not want hyphens in my resume. In fact, I don't want hyphens in any of my designs. I try to avoid them as much as possible. The great thing with Adobe InDesign is that you can actually press one button and it takes all your hyphens away. So I'm selecting all the type. I did that by doing Command A. And you see this little button up here that's checked that's saying hyphenate. You want to uncheck it. And it takes all the hyphens away. So you see it just fixed that. And it did it for all the type that's below. So running through, that is all bold, that's italic, that's fine. I'm going to keep these guys the same. I don't want to change this, that's fine. My date, I do want to change, so I'm going to I'm going to make that semi-bold. I'm going to make my title italicized. And I'm going to take responsibilities. And I'm just going to probably just bold. Nope, it's too much. It's too much. Regular. Okay. And I'm going to come down here. I'm going to highlight that line. Whoops. I can't do that because it's a different format. It's connected to a title, and that doesn't have a title. Alright, so I'm just going to have to do this by hand. Then I'm going to eyedrop for the rest of them. So I'm going to go into November, highlight that section, and I'm going to eyedrop. Alright. And I know that my titles, I want it to be italicized. So I'm going to take my title and put that in italics. I'm going to eyedrop it and bring it to the rest. And then I'm going to take my line of responsibilities. I'm going to eyedrop that and then take it to the rest. So far, my eye is actually being thrown off a little bit. It's being thrown off by a lot of spacing and the size differences between the bullets and the rest of the type. So I'm going to take these guys back to 10. I'm going to have to deal with like just rearranging and trying to make everything fit perfectly again in a bit. But all I know is that the 9 for the descriptions or the list of responsibilities was not working for me. Back to 10. And when that happens, you just push it in at 10. There we go. Alright, I'm going to keep these little guys at 9. But they do need a little more space. 5, 6. I'm going to kill some space in between here because that is what's killing me the most. I just got to find out who owns it. And my space before is don't seem to be registering. I think this little font here must have killed my space before formatting. Alright, there's not much I can do then. I'm just going to leave it as is or bring this down in size. 24. Yeah, that's probably the way it should be. 34 was probably a little too big. Okay. Alright, that's working for me now. So, I'm looking through, no hyphens, great. I like the spacing in between these guys. This is smaller, that's the way I want it. I see a mistake. I see a couple of hiccups. So what I see here is a word hanging just on its own right after the comma. Now, it's okay if it were a longer word, but a 3-letter word, it stands out visually. So I'm going to soft return that. And here I have what's called a widow. A widow is one word that belongs to a whole line of type, but it's hanging on the next line on its own. We don't want widows. So what I'm going to do is soft return there. So no, it's no longer a widow. Look through the rest of it to see if I find any more. Any double spaces, anything that looks funky. So here, that looks a little bit weird and funky, and that looks a little bit weird and funky. So I'm going to soft return on mailers. I'm going to soft return on CD. And I'm going to soft return on trouble. That's supposed to be actually, is it? I don't care. All right, we're going to leave that there. Even though this feels like it's funky, it's on its own line. It's not connected to anything, so I won't do anything there. There goes one massive widow. So I'm going to soft return on the word and. We have projects, that's a widow. I'm going to soft return on assigned. And just so we don't have this huge little break here where they're coming to the edge and there's like a big dip over here, I'm going to soft return on college and stock. All right. So I think this is looking so solid already. My last thing I'm going to do for my resume is make 2 columns within one text box. Remember, we're still in one text box. I know most of you are used to doing box here, box there, box here, box there. That's torture. You shouldn't do that. So now you're learning to actually keep everything together in one text box. I'm going to take this whole section here. This may not work out and this may not look good, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway. Here's my paragraph window. And this is where I'm going to split the column. I'm going to go to span columns. And I'm going to split it. I'm going to put my preview on. And it split it as a huge gutter. It's a subcolumn. And it's a huge jump because of the tabs. I have to probably deactivate the tabbing on this in order to do it. I don't want to deactivate the tabbing. I really don't. So I'm going to cancel. Had a feeling it wasn't going to work out because the tabs here and the indentations, I like that. I actually like that. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep these guys floating the way they are. And it doesn't matter. I'm not intruding too much into my second page. What I am going to do is add a little bit more space so it's not right on the print edge. See, this mouse is driving me bananas, man. Alright. Just to get it away from the margin on page 2. So everything kind of did work out, everything but my spanning into 2 columns, because I have such a huge indent that's set between these guys. But sometimes you can't get everything that you want, and that looks pretty good. I'm going to take off so I'm going to hide the characters. And right now all you see is grids and layouts and stuff like that. You probably just want to see what this will look like as it prints. So if you click and hold, it's right underneath. It's actually in the view panel. So look at my mouse, I'm kind of flowing over it. It's set to normal. If I go to preview, there, so that's what it's going to look like on paper. And that is one clean freaking resume. This is what people love. They love clean stuff. They love clean typography. To kind of make your resume, you can have beautiful graphics everywhere. It could be like a graphic craziness on the page, but if your type is ugly, if your type is sloppy, then that you're sending a message like, all I really care about is making pretty images. And that's not what they really want designers to do. I have to soft return here. I could see that stands out. Alright, so I hope I didn't scare you. This was just your first introduction to dealing with type and just dealing with a simple layout. But this is resume. We're going to move into the next hardest section to work with, and that is your trifold. And we're going to kick into that on Wednesday. But this should be good for you to work with today and tomorrow. So I would probably see these actually on Wednesday, depending on how fast you go or how much you struggle. But if you have questions, just ask me.